program. This is Politics Spotlight. There is no gainsaying that the 2023 presidential election is critical in the life of Nigeria. Sadly, there seems to be an attempt to get it overloaded by what is termed voting culture, thereby distracting Nigerians from the critical issue of development and agenda of political leaders. Political analysts and experts have said that the culture of voters in Nigeria can be said to be controlled, commercial, or conscience voting. The point being made here is that this voting culture are far entrenching itself as a political culture in our claim. Some allied hardly go to cast their vote for the fear of being insulted by vote buyers who front for their candidate or those who want to deliver their polling booths. Therefore, this episode seeks to consider the voting culture of Nigerians as the nation prepares for the 2023 general election with a view to examine how these practices will bed a credible election come 2023 in Nigeria. On the program today are two gentlemen. Of course, we have Right Honorable Remmy Hazzan. Right Honorable Remmy Hazzan is the Special Advisor on Media and Public Communication to Prince Dapo-Abiodun, the Ogun State Governor. Joining through Zoom, of course, is our whole my guest from the United States of America, Mr. Alfa Samuel, the President of Kogi State Organization in the United States. And I'm Adeshina Olaniwaju. The conversation begins after this break. Welcome back to the program. Perhaps you're just joining us. This is Politics Spotlight, and today we want to examine the voting culture of Nigerians. And of course, I have two my guests here already on the program today. Like I said, in the studio here is Right Honorable Remmy Hazzan, is the Special Advisor on Media and Public Communication to the Governor of Ogun State, Prince Dapo-Abiodun, and attending through Zoom is Mr. Alfa Samuel. Mr. Alfa Samuel, let me throw this first. Let me come to you. What would you explain, or how would you explain the attitude of the populace towards election? We are preparing for election now. How would you describe the attitude of people as we prepare for 2023 general election?
Thank you very much, Mr. Olaraju, and thanks to Honorable Hazzan. For that question, obviously, when there is an election that is coming, there is a need to actually bring up awareness to the people, to the populace, so that they can, be prepared to know what, is coming. And how that they are going to have a chance to actually vote for the candidates that are vying for the offices that they need to vote for. And a part of the preparation is making sure people know when and where to go and get all the information about their voting rights, making sure that they are registered to vote. And that is basically what you need to let people know. Nigeria is already a civilized culture, and civilized in quote, that you don't need to do too much other than letting people know that it's their right to vote, it's their right to elect whoever they want to be in the office, to be the one that is in charge of the affairs that govern them. And that is exactly what they just need to do. Unfortunately, Nigeria has proven not to be at that level. Like you said in your introduction, when you talk of things like controlled voting, commercial voting, and conscience voting, there should be nothing like that. Voting is voting, and that is the culture of voting. There should be no way for us to classify it and categorize it in these different ways. The fact that we do that already has set the tone that yes, there is really something wrong with that culture. Voting is voting, should not be categorized.
Right, Honorable. Voting is voting. what can you make from the voting culture of Nigeria, and what factor responsible for this culture in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. And once again, I also want to acknowledge Mr. Alfa from the United States. Thank you for your very honest thought. But let me break it down this way. There are three different climes globally. You have the developed world, you have the third world nations, and then you have the ones in between, the one we call the developing. In the developed world, establishment determine who leads, even though at the end of the day they are going to debate on issues. In the third world nation is more about the stronger ethnicity that gets to power. Then in between is the power of money. Who is a controlled voter? A controlled voter is that person whose knowledge of the situation is shallow and whose sentiment on religion and ethnicity is quite high. And therefore, whatever the religious leaders or his ethnic frontliners sell to him is what holds the foray. And such people quite in Nigeria are in the majority, except we want to deceive ourselves. It's just unfortunate that amongst us Christians, you have this number, very few, but is more on the other side than we have in the Christian faith. For those who are the commercial voters, of course, poverty is the most major evidence of life and living in the third world country. And anyone who sees his daily bread being met through any means will give whatever he has in exchange for their vote. Those are commercial voters. The basis for that is poverty. Now you have the conscience voters. Unfortunately, here in this part of the world, there are very few. There are the people who speak to issues, and there are those who want to hear the programs and policies of would-be leaders. Unfortunately, they are in the minority. We will only pray. It's beginning to change. Now, the paradigm is shifting because it's becoming clear that the old order is not bettering the lot of the people. Therefore, people are now beginning to want to speak to issues. But how much of that will tackle the ethno-religious sentiment that we have for controlled voters? We wait to see in the 2023 elections.
All right. I'm going to come back to you. There's a report that, that shows that some states with higher registered voters has a very low turnout when it comes to voting moment. Let me cite an example. In 2029, Lagos State has over 60.
Did you say 2029?
2019.
2019.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, 2019. In 2019 general election, Lagos State has over 6 million registered voters. When it comes to voting, Lagos has just over 1 million. Now let's go to the east. Abia had over 1 million registered voters. When it comes to voting, they had about 360 voters. In River State, the same thing, over 3 million registered and about 6,000 votes. Now, what is the hype about go and collect your PVC, go and get your PVC, go and get registered for PVC, come out, go and collect it, and come out on the election day? Where are Nigerians and leaders missing it?
Thank you very much. At the time INEC began to shore up its database, the checks that we have now that will avoid multiple registrations are not there. So back then, some of us believed that a number of those who registered on INEC database are not particularly people that can be identified. Now, when the technology began to improve and you now needed to show up and prove through biometrics that you are the person, now it's even to the extent of having bimodal checks of the person through facial and other approach. You see that those who have done multiple registration are holding back. That's on one side. The second leg of it is that Lagos, for example, has the highest number of elites in this country. And the elites in this country are guilty of not voting. They sit in the comfort of their home. Some of them, when elections are approaching, that's when they travel abroad. Because they just are not sure what will come out of the process. And they have, by their own opinion, more to protect than any other person. So that too is an account for why you have that low turnout. Because a voter that does not show up will not be counted.
Yeah.
That's another one. Then, of course, I don't know the kind of system we run as a nation to delete the names of those that are dead from the register. My dad has been late since 2014. His name is still on the register.
Wow.
When they displayed it the last time I went to check during the last election, I still saw my dad's name there. And I was like, wow, what's this? I even asked those who are in charge. They said they will look at it. We should bring evidence. We should do this. The system.
You should bring evidence that is
that
dead.
is late.
Maybe
Of course,
your dad now. You have told them that your dad is dead.
No, they are right with that. Okay. That is the death certificate. Who has time for that? What ordinarily should have been done is that the system should self-check. Once somebody is reported dead and it goes into the database of citizens in this country, INEC should be able to lift that data and take it to their own record that this person is late, and they remove it. It works like that in the United States. Because during the last election in the US, 2020, I remember that someone voted in the state of Minnesota, and it was recorded that the person voted on the identity of a dead person. And the system discovered it. That is the kind of system we're expecting to have in the nation. So those who are late, those who will not vote, and of course those who did multiple registration, all those names are still on the register. So you have a bloated register. The actual people are not maybe 50, 60, 70% of the number that you have on the register. That's my own take.
Mr. Alfa, what's your take on this? Having a high level of voters register and having a low turnout when it comes to election time?
Well, in addition to what Honorable Hazzan has said, there is also the practice of, what I would consider to be a part of the controlled voting culture. And the practice is that the candidates try to discourage people from coming out because of their willingness to do what we know as snatching of the voting boxes. Yes. So, they try to scare people from coming out to vote. So, yes, while the number may be because they have some people that have passed on that are still on the register, or while it may be fear of violence, people not coming out or traveling outside of Nigeria during that time, there is also that culture of the control, the ruling party, ensuring that they remain in office by discouraging people from coming. And so you hear of people saying, if you go, there will be gunshots, there will be violence, and people will say, well, after all, my voting does not count. Because the boxes are snatched to the government house or somewhere, and they just put any number. And we also know that INEC has a lot to do in terms of reputation and integrity. INEC is not there yet. And we do hope that INEC should be there, because it's not independent, Nigeria Independent Electoral Commission. There's nothing independent about our election at all. It is still very controlled by the ruling party. But things are changing now where that is going to be, where that is going to be reduced. And so, yes, there may be people that do not want to come out to vote, but I think that in some places, the names that you have on that list, they are all legitimate.
So
but they are afraid to come out
let me throw it,
because of
let me throw it back.
that violence.
Let me throw it back at you. You're talking about, and of course, Right Honorable also said about, you were talking about the controlled voter who they possess the highest ratio in this segment. Now, how can this high number of controlled voter be reduced, or how can it be subdued, Mr. Sam?
Yeah, like Honorable Razan said, the tide is changing in Nigeria. And I think that for good, in the 2023 election that we are looking forward to, and it's coming from the awareness, of people, of what it means to vote, of not just listening to another person telling you. So we are moving towards that conscience voting culture, which is what it should be. And you were trying to make people aware. Look, you need to vote for the person that you think is the right person to actually lead you. These are the things you look for when you talk of good governance. These are the things that you look for when you talk of me having, when you think of me benefiting from the dividend of democracy. This is what it means. Now you look at your situation. Does anything that you are looking at now actually represent that dividend as a citizen, as a voter? And if it does not, then look at what that person is saying. You need to hear the person that is actually running. You need to hear from the candidate that, yes, these are the things that I want to do. And then if you have anything that you can actually use as an evidence, try to point the person. Say, hey, look, you promised this the last time that you were campaigning, but this is what you did. And we need that kind of a culture, and that is coming up now. So awareness, education, voters' education is high. So that's why many people are saying, go and get your PVC. And you could hear people saying, look, well, I don't need to get my PVC because it's going to be violent. But thanks to the president for signing the new, electoral, pact. And now what is happening? They are encouraging people, go and get your PVC. Go and get your PVC. This is the end of the date for you to register, because now there's not going to be violence. Your vote will count now, because everything is going to happen right there. The police cannot come and snatch anything. These are the kinds of awareness that will actually get people to come out. And now, and they do the analysis of telling them, look, if you sell your vote, this is how much they give you. They give you 2,000. And the 2,000, when you break it down, this is what it comes down to in a day for 4 years. And what can you do with it? So that kind of awareness is helping, a lot. And I think the turnout is going to be better.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam. Let's come back to the studio. From what Mr. Alfa said, you're part of the government, and then the government has been tagged as that they are not interested in creating awareness, electoral awareness before election. How much has the government or your government have invested, or political parties, so to say, have invested in pre-education of voters' awareness to eligible voters? That's number one. Number two is that, could it be that you mentioned Lagos in your where you are making your contribution? Could it be that people are boycotting the election in Lagos State because of the one-party system it runs, and then especially in Lagos it seems that there is no strong opposition party? Could it be that because of the one-party system that is going on in that state, is why people don't want to come out to that?
Thank you very much. Now, the issue of awareness, as Mr. Alfa mentioned, is very correct. Awareness is key, but it goes beyond awareness. If you want to change the culture of controlled voters, then what you need, beyond the awareness being made, is for us to de-emphasize ethno-religious sentiment in leadership. An Ijebu man is the governor in Ogun State. He takes the whole resources of the state and develops Ijebu land to the detriment of the Egba land or the Yewa land. The next time, people will listen to ethnic sentiment in deciding who governs, because it is now a case of develop your locality. And it's the same sentiment even at the center, because you have this mutual suspicion among ethnic nationalities that when it is a northerner, development will be more in the north, appointments will tilt towards the north, and all of that. So the leadership class needs to begin now to change the narrative in a way that it doesn't matter which side of the country the leader of the nation comes from. You that is from the minutest of minority will still be confident that development will come to your locality. When that happens, whoever has the strength of using controlled voters to better his lost has already lost it. Because when you talk to such people based on that sentiment, they tell you that, well, I'm looking for merit, because it doesn't matter who leads. My own portion will not be lost in the circumstance. That's on the one side. Now, the awareness thing that we're even talking about is a shared responsibility. You have the role of INEC primarily.
INEC
is part of their job.
INEC is doing it. NGOs are doing it.
They are doing it, but this is another dimension to it. You don't go and paste the poster of voter education in a remote village and write it in English language and expect that you are communicating. Do it in their native dialect, that even the person who has not seen the four walls of a school before will look at it and, oh, wow. Then on radio, do it in their native dialect. They will even be much more connected to the messaging that you are having. So INEC has a role. Political class, the political parties, have their own role. Because at the end of the day, if you are not able to let those who will vote for you understand you on the ballot, they are going to either void the vote or vote wrongly. That's on the one side. Then government, too, has another role. It's just that of the government should be less partisan. The party can afford to be partisan. That is what they represent. But government should do it not as representing a political party, but as representing the interests of the populace. So if we are able to change the narrative of leadership from the ethno-religious sentiment, controlled voters population will reduce to the barest minimum. We can't take it out completely. There are those who will be sentimental about religion, about ethnicity. You can't take that away from them. But we should do a lot to reduce the number who think in that way.
Okay. How about the Lagos State?
Now, the issue of Lagos State is
there is no strong opposition party in the state.
It's not a question of strong opposition. Now, political culture varies from locality to locality. In the United States, there are locations that are unrepentantly blue, and there are those that are irredeemably red. Then there are those that are in between. We call them the battleground state. It can go either way. Now, if Lagos has adopted progressivism and it is working for them, and it has remained like that, whoever is thinking of dislodging the progressives in Lagos will have to think out of the box. Now, if they are yet to come up with a strategy that will dislodge, then forget it. That ideology will continue to hold sway in that locality. And it's like that. There have been states that have been PDP from inception in 1999. There have been states that have been progressive from inception in 1999. And there are those that have alternated between the two. So that, to me, I don't see it as an issue. What is most important is, it doesn't matter which party is in power. Let what ought to come to the people come to them. Let development be entrenched. Let people have a better life. And at the end of the day, we will de-emphasize this partisanship and accord our leaders the respect that they deserve.
All right, the ongoing CVR exercise, it seems people are having a number of difficulties of getting their details transferred. Those who who wants to do that, whose PVC is damaged or defaced. Now, what can you make of a situation where you can only vote where you register? And how about getting to the point where people can vote anywhere they are? Must I go to, because I reside in Ogun State and I work in Lagos State. Must I come to Ogun State to register? Don't you think INEC is about 23, 24 years. Don't you think INEC should have they should have grown to that point where you can vote anywhere you have, considering the level of technology advancement that we have around us?
It's a gradual process, and attempting to arrive there in one fell swoop, may damage the totality of the good intentions of INEC. So where we are today is that you can only vote in the state where you have registered. And if for whatever reason you have any reason to move to another location, maybe because your job moved or your family moved or whatever, approach INEC. They will move you accordingly, because every state has captured in the database of INEC the total number of registered voters. One movement depletes one and adds to another, so records need to be kept. When we now begin to have our country as one indivisible entity on the database of INEC, then that technology that is required for you to vote wherever you are may suffice. At this point that we're in, I don't think it is too much of a challenge that you should vote in the location that you have registered. If you're not going to be able to vote ahead of time, you will have known. That's why the dates are communicated ahead of time, so you will know where you will be at that time, and you can work out your movement to say, okay, if I'm going to be in the Southeast in February next year, I think I should just register in the Southeast. And people are moving to their various states of origin to register because they know they can afford to be there at that time. So people should just register where they will be when the elections will hold at this time.
Let's talk about the issue of promise made by political office holder, and because it seems is dictating the tone of voting culture of Nigeria. What is your position or disposition to this?
You know, when you stand on the days and you are making promises politically, most times it is not because you intend not to keep them. I listened to all of the narratives shaped by President Joe Biden during the build-up to the 2020 elections. Now, when he was making those promises, nobody envisaged that there was going to be a Russia-Ukraine war. And at the end of the day, that war has sparked up a global high level of inflation that most Americans who had 40% propensity to save in 2019, 2020, now are living from paycheck to paycheck. Now, to the common man, they don't want to know what the reasons are for this, their challenge. It's just that you are the one that is there, now I cannot save. I don't have money again. That doesn't mean that the man doesn't mean well. However, when you throw conversations into the space regularly to let people know exactly what the challenges are, people will be able to reason with. Some will not reason, whatever it is. In our state, for example, my governor made quite a number of promises on roads, on health facilities, and what have you. And up until 2020, things were going well. Then came COVID. We ranked second to Lagos in terms of propensity or capacity to generate revenue. As soon as COVID came and lockdown began, the highest payers of our taxes are not even in business. And when they are not in business, how do we begin to charge them for the money they did not even earn? Now we have challenges continuing with some of the programs, the project, or even commencing new ones. And people will now say, you promised us, you have not kept it. Therefore, as far as we are concerned, you have failed. But the reality is that the person that is coming is not going to perform any magic. It is the reality that is there that is still going to work with.
But in that state now, it seems that between the last 3 to 4 months, it seems that the government of your state, the state government, they are giving themselves to more, doing more roads, more developmental programs.
That's because
why has that not been done
out
before,
of the box.
Before now?
We had
Why
challenges.
is it that when election is at hand, that government, the promises they've made, why is it that it's when they needed something from the populace that they move towards doing what they ought to have done earlier?
Now, like I said, you are to speak from an unbiased position, yes, as a pressman, yes, and I will take it that there is still some element of unbiased trait in the way you have shaped your question. Now, like I said, the whole of 2020 for us was not even there, because we had challenges, because all those things went down and were the view till we began to recover gradually in 2021. Even at that, the global challenge of high inflation came in. And let me tell you the import of that. In Nigeria, when we solved the problem of oil installation vandalization through President Musa Yar'Adua of blessed memory, things began to return to normalcy in the Niger Delta. But another bigger challenge came in oil theft, which this present administration has not been able to resolve. Now, we have capacity to produce 2.3 to 3 million barrels per day. Because of oil theft, what is produced from the point of the oil well drilling may be up to that 2.3 million, but what gets to the flow station where the terminals are for exportation is, it has just managed to get to 1.5 now. Now, that 1.5 brings an income of, let's say, 10 naira. I'm just trying to paraphrase. Now, for the 10 naira, when NNPC was still bringing in crude oil, a refined petroleum product, at a relative subsidy because prices were a bit marginal, it was okay. But now, you find a situation where the price we buy at home is like 1/3 of the price that is sold at the global market. Apart from the fact that we're already repaying some of our debt with a high level of our oil revenue, we are now also subjecting a very high chunk of that oil revenue to subsidy. What does that now translate to? Some states are getting zero allocation from federal government. That zero allocation means that if you cannot do some bit of ingenious revenue generation drive at home, governance will crumble. We now realize that instead of waiting for this improvement in revenue to come, can't we just approach some of our bankers and see what we can raise to continue with some of the projects that we're already carrying on, and even start new one, so that by the time improvement comes, we can now begin to, defray some of these expenses. That is why you saw that we just came up with the idea of starting some of those projects, just because we want to keep the promises we made. If COVID hadn't come, we will have finished most of those projects. We will have commenced new ones, just because at that time, the income trend was something that will carry on with those projects.
All right, thank you so much. Let me go back to Mr. Alfa. Mr. Alfa, politicians and poll experts agree that Nigeria's democracy may not advance if the issue of election culture, money politics, and political party manipulation are not properly addressed. How can these components be addressed?
Okay, thank you for that question. I want to address still the issue of awareness, which I think also fits into the question that you asked. Thank you again to Honorable Hazzan for the comment about, how we can raise the awareness by actually communicating in the languages of the people. I remember in 2019 when I was campaigning, for the gubernatorial office, that was one of the strategies that we devised, that the posters and the flyers, the billboards that we give to people should be in their languages so that they can read. But beyond giving it, were actually making our presence felt at each of those places, so that in campaigning we were able to tell the people of our manifesto of what we were about and what we were coming to do and how it was going to be different from what they had experienced the previous 4 years. Those are all a part of the awareness. So when people do jingle, when they do banners, when they do flyers, everything should be tailored to the people so that you can actually speak to them. That is how we can get the consciences of the people. I mean, that's how we can raise the awareness so that the people can vote their conscience. Like we know, Nigeria is so fragmented and so polarized that we need those kinds of things to bring about unity. And until we forge that unity, there's no way we can actually begin to vote for people. Let's now work on changing our voting from voting for a political party to voting for the candidate, so that when we focus on the candidate and we focus on the manifesto of the candidate, what the candidate is promising to do, then we'll gradually move away from being from voting based on ethno-religion, from voting based on party, from voting based on ethnicity, because we need to get to that point where we focus on the person that is actually doing it.
All right.
If not, there's no way we can deal with this issue of controlled voting or of commercial voting. We need to get to that point where we can actually begin to get people to look at the candidate. So the candidates themselves right now, they don't go anywhere. All they do is just give money to people to go and then distribute. But they need to be encouraged to actually go to have town hall meetings with the with the people, with the electorate. They need to be there and actually present themselves and let people compare. And we need to get to the point where we'll now begin to have debates. Real organized debates between candidates so that they can prove themselves. Okay, you say you want to do this. How are you going to do it? And on the issue of people promising and COVID not allowing them to actually deliver, one of the things that I would say is that communication is key. We need to communicate with the people. When things happen, this is what we said we're going to do. But because of this, we cannot do this. Let's not just sit down and assume that people will know that because there is COVID, that all our resources are going to be diverted towards them. All our sales are going to be low. Let's communicate with the people. And I think that is a key part of one of the things that is actually lacking. Because what that does to people is it makes people think that, well, these people are not even concerned about us at all. Whereas you are concerned about them, but they need to know what is it that you are doing that is debarring you from actually fulfilling the promises that you made. If not, when you come to do things around the time of election, the electorate will now begin to think, oh, you are doing this to please us, to show that you are good. And then once the election is off, then we are back to square one. So I know that some states did well communicating in terms of the challenges of COVID, but there are so many that didn't even care at all. And so when salaries are not paid, they don't even care to say these are the reasons why we are not, that we are not paying. Our allocation is not coming, or it's not as high as it used to be, or the economy is not. We need to communicate. It is a key part of any electoral process.
All right, I'm going to put this across to you both. Let's quickly do a pairing. Let's do a pairing of the APC and the PDP presidential candidate. Atiku Abubakar is from the Northeast region. Ifeanyi Okowa is from the South-South region. Bola Ahmed is from the Bola Ahmed Tinubu is from the Southwest region, and Kashim Shettima is from the Northeast East region. What does this pairing seems to you, just as the presidential candidate posed to Nigeria as if the PDP presidential candidate posed to Nigeria that he has won the election? I'm going to put it across to Mr. Alfa. One or 2 minutes, what can you make of this pairing?
Did you say that the PDP candidate has already said he has won?
All right.
Go
on. Yes.
No, is that what you said?
Yes, I said it's the PDP presidential candidate is posing to Nigeria or Nigerians that as if he has won the election, perhaps because of the pairing.
When you talk of it, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
What can you make of this? Talking about, of course, let me do the analysis again. Atiku Abubakar is from the North region, Northeast region.
Mm-hmm.
His vice presidential candidate, Ifeanyi Okowa, is from the South.
Right.
Now, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is of the APC, is from the Southwest region. And of course, his vice presidential candidate is Kashim Shettima, who is from the Northeast region. What does this pairing seem to you?
It is also, it is still addressing the issue of ethno-religion concept. That is what that is. If I get somebody that appeals to the people from this particular region of the country, then I stand a chance to win the election.
All right.
Or if I get a person from this religion, then the people in that religion would actually appeal, to me. Okay. Yes, that's the way Nigeria has become polarized and become fragmented. But the issue is, what is it that these people are actually delivering? What are they promising to? And do they have the capability? Do they have the intelligence? And do they have the stamina to actually deliver these things that they are saying?
Thank you.
This person I'm looking at, what is the pedigree that this person has?
Right.
Does this person even have any integrity at all? Those should be the questions that we should be looking at and not be focusing on addressing the ethno-religious. I know Nigeria is not there yet, but we ought to be there.
Right.
But we should be moving faster towards that rather than retrogressing.
Right.
And that's what it's not about the pairing as much as who the people are.
All right, thank you so much. Right Honorable, what can you make of this pairing? And in summary, give us an update of what is happening in your state.
Now, the political space in Nigeria, the power game, revolves around 5 principal actors. The president, the vice president, the Senate president, the Speaker of the House of Reps, and the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Under the present dispensation, up until about a month ago, it's just the vice president that is the only Christian among the lot. And believe it or not, the president is extremely powerful. The Senate president is optimally powerful. The Speaker of the House of Reps is relatively powerful. Residual power resides with the judiciary. The vice president is a powerless placeholder. Therefore, even in the current dispensation, Christianity is not even well represented in that arrangement. Now, we're looking at the sentiment of religion. I will expect Christian leaders to negotiate and say, if you have picked a vice president that is a Muslim, we demand that the Senate president must be a Christian to balance the lot. That means that it is impossible for any agenda, real or imagined, like they say concerning Islamization, to happen without the buy-in of the National Assembly, where the Senate president is the leader. As things presently are, of course I know it's not true, even if the president decides to do any Islamization agenda now, the vice president has no role to play. Because constitutionally, the Constitution says the vice president shall play such role as assigned to him by the president. So if the president assigns no role, he plays nothing.
Yeah.
It's unlike the United States, where constitutionally the vice president is the Senate president. So he has a role already as the leader of the Congress, presiding over the sittings of both the Senate and that of the Congress as well. So I am not particularly bothered about the Muslim ticket. I'm more interested in the deliverables that both of them are bringing to the table. And I am comfortable with my party that Bola Ahmed Tinubu will deliver for this nation. Because even though he's a Muslim, that is the most unbiased religious person you can ever see, with a Christian wife who is even a pastor in the same Redeemed Christian Church of God where I'm also a pastor. Why or how will that people are imagining? But of course, like I said, ethno-religious sentiment is a monster we are yet to deal with in our political process. Now come to Ogun State. Our own agenda is simple. The anthem of Ogun State is Isheya, work begins. And the development pillars we brought into governance is premised on that organogram, that same, rhetorics that defines us. The idea is infrastructure, and we are approaching infrastructure equitably. We are not developing one side of the state to the detriment of another. If you see a major project in one senatorial district, there is a replica of that same developmental project in another senatorial district, so that everybody begins to feel this is our government. The next one is S, social welfare and social well-being. That's where you have security. That's where you have health. And of course, that's where you also have housing. And all of what we have done in housing, for example, under this administration, we have done about 1,800 units of housing. The totality of the housing done in Ogun State from 1976, our creation, to 2019 when we came, is less than 1.5. This administration alone has done more than has been done in over 40 years of Ogun State creation. And we're still going ahead, doing more. That's on the one side. Security, of course, you remember that when we began, one of the first things we did was to send to the House of Assembly an amendment to the State Security Trust Fund law, so that the inclusion of the private sector can be made a lot more, enabling in a way that they see themselves as stakeholders. And of course, today, our police may not be there yet, but they have left where they used to be, because relatively they have equipment, they have all that they need now to work with, but we still believe that the biggest room in the whole world is a room for improvement. E is education, Y is for youth development and culture and tourism, and of course the A is for agriculture. And it is under agriculture that we have had one of the biggest milestones, taking not less than 14,000 of our youth out of the labor market into gainful employment under the Anchor Borrowers Program of the Central Bank of Nigeria. There's no time. We can go on and on and on and on.
All right. Thank you so much, Right Honorable, for being our guest today, and the wealth of information you've given to us and the viewers at home. I also want to thank Mr. Alfa Samuel for always coming whichever time we ask him to come. We appreciate your efforts, and we thank you for every information you have given to us today. I also want to thank you for watching this episode. If without you, it can't be us. But we want to thank you for watching this episode, and we know that, like Right Honorable said, that the political culture of Nigeria is advancing. Yes, it's advancing. So on this note, I want to say thank you once again, and until when I meet you again, Politics Spotlight remain. God bless Nigeria, and God bless you.